how can we innovate the way that people actually search and discover products across thousands of products? We have the data that proves how this improves sales. Like we're seeing a 1.6 times increase in checkout size. The conversion rate goes up too. 3.5 times increase in conversion rate. We know that these brands spend thousands of dollars to get access to color reports and color data, trend analysis. And the software is not giving brands any insight. Math can be incredibly creative. There are literally quadrillions of unique combinations. So, and it was almost shocking to me to realize no one else was doing that because it's like the only way to accurately understand color. When you have a certain budget and you're trying to do something incredibly ambitious, you have a choice to make where you can either spread yourself thin, trying to cover a whole lot with one product,
Yeah.
or you could concentrate all of your resources into doing one single thing just better than anyone else. I learned by doing. And I felt like the best way for me to learn about business was to go start a business. I thought if I could do something in the tech industry and I can make that extremely successful, then maybe I could even fund one of my films one day. Along the way, I also just completely fell in love with what I do now. And I already have, other dreams of running other businesses in the distant future as well. A lot of, I think, inspired ideas come from that. It's like being able to pick a very specific path that is true to you and dive into it and um, go really deep with it because most people don't. Yeah.
In your life, man, you're 26. You already received a lot of inspiration and acted upon it. Where do you find inspiration and how do you know it's inspiration for you? All right, click down below to subscribe so that we can continue to provide you these interviews so you can find out how people like you have been able to discover what's possible in their lives and become their greatest of all time. Bridger, welcome. So excited for you to be here, man. I've been looking forward to this. I've heard a lot about you guys. Recently, you guys have been noted as one of the Forbes under 30. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, for the retail and e-commerce category.
That's fantastic, man. I think that leadership and what you guys have been able to do um, just speaks volumes to who you are. And so this podcast, Discover Possible, is going to really focus in, and we're going to have a conversation here over the next hour where I want to learn more about you. I want our audience to be able to know who you are, how you became who you are so far, and where you want to go. So
Yeah.
we're going to start off with that. And first of all, like, thank you for your time. Thank you for making this possible. Let's begin. Tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing. Give everybody some context so they can place you around everything that they know and everything that matters to them.
Yeah. So we're in the e-commerce space and we patented and invented this new way to search for products by color within a website. So using our color wheel, you could select and you can pinpoint any specific color you want. Maybe that's like something hard to describe, like a dark Dijon color or like a very light blue or a dark kind of teal color. You can pinpoint that and instantly find the closest match within website. So it's a visual search technology that is a dramatic improvement on what the way people normally navigate by color. If you were to shop on, say, Nike's website today, they have the ability to filter by these generic categories like blue or green or yellow, but you can't actually specify exactly what you're looking for. And we're the first company to really tackle that at scale.
That's super cool. And tell me your role in the company and
Mhm.
in all of this.
So I'm a co-founder. I'm the CEO, and we have two other co-founders. My older brother Carson, he leads the brand outreach and he's the chief design officer. And then we have a third co-founder who sort of represents the gray hairs in the room, and he's our chief technology officer. And connected us to a fantastic team of three full-time engineers, including a data scientist. And
Nice.
and so, my role spans I think what I like about startups, you get to explore a whole lot. I'm really involved in everything. I quality check everything that comes out from a technical standpoint, and um, I'm sort of the color science nerd on the team. So I wrote the algorithms involved in the color search technology.
Fantastic. Well, tell
Mhm.
now let's go deeper into who you are. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hermosa Beach, California, so
Okay.
it's just outside of Los Angeles, and um, sort of this like small town community. Everyone knows everyone here. And um, I was raised in a very creative family. So both our parents were artists, and our mom used to work in fashion. So she would design
Mm.
for brands like Guess jeans, for instance. And our dad is an entrepreneur. So he's actually a candy inventor. He's invented a whole lot of candies over the years. His most notable one would be the Juicy Drop Pop candy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool. And so your mom was a designer of of clothing, of
Mhm.
jeans, right? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So she has that connection to the fashion industry. And, Carson, my brother, he's very into fashion. And
Mm.
um, obviously this business really touches on the fashion industry. They're significantly larger than other industries like interior design and art and photography when it comes to so a lot of our clients are in fashion.
Got it. That's super cool. What a great way to grow up with creators and inventors, right? So,
Yeah.
what was it like for you growing up in that household? Are you the oldest? I guess no, Carson's your older brother.
Yeah, so I'm the
Okay.
middle child.
In the middle.
Yeah, we have a younger brother, 4 years younger, just graduated UCLA mechanical engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're a very creative family. Like Carson and I, we both independently got the best artist award in our yearbook in high school, and our dad also got that back in the day. But for me, it wasn't pencil drawings or anything like that. I was actually a filmmaker for most of my life. That was something
Uh,
I got really deeply into when I was 10 years old. And so for longer than I've been an entrepreneur, I've been a filmmaker, and that's something I've explored for most of my life.
so growing up, you tell me about this bug that bit you to become a filmmaker. Like what? How did you get started with that?
It started when early on, my dad taught me how to use Photoshop when I was about 10
Okay.
years old. I was really drawn to these technical tools and visual effects, being able to create these incredible things that just didn't exist, like being able to composite in, an explosion behind one of my friends skating off a ramp or something ridiculous like that. And so I would learn all these tools just to create these films, which at the time, we didn't have AI editing tools. Like this was all very rare stuff that was only reserved for real budgeted films. But this software is coming out where you could, I had early versions of After Effects and all these tools, and I was able to create um, these films. But I would explore all aspects of the filmmaking process. I'd say like some of my earliest films were stop motion animations with Lego minifigures.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's super cool.
yeah, so I I would explore film for a lot. I was kind of like the filmmaker kid around town, and I'd start to film these local short films, um and that's even what I was planning to do completely even just coming out of high school. So I had
When
the
was wait
yeah,
when was this? What year was this when you were 10? What was that?
I graduated high school class of 2017,
Okay, got it.
26 now, so
Okay, got it.
a while
Um,
ago.
yeah. Okay, so why did your dad teach you Photoshop?
Well, he had the graphic design background. He would design and invent these candies, and so he
Uh,
taught me these tools. And I was very into color at the even way back, just colorizing things. And I had a very unique sense of style at the time. I would wear a tie-dye shirt every single day, so I was really into these vibrant
why?
colors.
Why would you wear a tie-dye shirt every day?
I think I enjoyed the uniqueness of it. I actually would wear a tie-dye shirt and plaid shorts, and that was like my look. And it was so recognizable. Even my middle school gym teacher dressed up as me for Halloween, and the whole school knew who it was.
That's awesome. So you would make these shirts and stuff too, or just
No, I would
like
just pick up, yeah, any chance I could get. I think I liked the graphic style that would cover everything.
so you think your dad got you into color? Was that what
I
it
think
is?
I've always been into color. I think he helped enable and encourage some of the tools that gave access to that. But really, it was, my mom as well. We grew up with a craft room in the basement of our house, so we really had like our own kind of studio for
Tell me
creative
more. Yeah.
endeavors.
What was in that craft room?
Oh, all kinds, like any kind of crafting material you can imagine. Just loads of access to different pens and pencils and weird papers and popsicle sticks, things for like building. And when you start getting into visual effects from a young age, you realize a lot of films they use miniatures, and you're able to create a small scale version of a real life thing. So I used to build these miniatures because I like to combine a bit of special effects, which is in camera practical effects, with actual visual effects, which is created on the computer generated side of things. And so, I took that kind of creative crafting background, and just kind of brought it into my early films too.
Nice. So
Mm.
you would make miniatures out of what?
All kinds of, one of the things I love to do is just come up with creative alternate uses for things. I've got this like, I've got this just block of wood I keep in the office because I like to think of 100 different uses for that block of wood. And that type of creative mental exercise is really freeing because you realize there's a whole lot you can do with the tools you have access to. I used to build my own, like I built a camera jib, I built, all sorts of tools using things that were not intended for that purpose. You'd go to Home Depot and you'd pick up
Mm.
PVC pipes and then realize that could be a structural element for some camera rig you're trying to build. And, in the miniature space, for instance, I had a forced perspective shot I did in my neighbor's backyard where I made it look like there was a swimming pool on his grass lawn. And I did that by creating a miniature of a pool. And the frame of that pool was actually just a wooden picture frame that I picked up from Aaron Brothers. And and I kind of painted it a little, made it look like it was a large scale deck around the pool. And then I'd construct the interior of that pool with all sorts of materials to create uh the steps. And I think like when you're into filmmaking, it's a whole lot of problem solving. There's a lot to creatively figure out, and you want to do it as efficiently as possible. And I love that aspect of the job is just like inventing new ways to do things and trying to come up with ways to solve a problem. When I started photographing that pool, you realize that a single drop of water is going to pull up and it's going to create a shape. And you need to change the viscosity so that it actually flattens out and looks like a large scale pile of water. What I did at the time, so this was in high school now.
Yeah, yeah,
I um I would go into my science teacher's class after hours, and I asked for a bottle of distilled water, regular water, and then salty water, extremely salty water. And
yeah.
I took the eyedropper and I compared all three of those waters, and I watched how the water jiggled and how well it kind of how strong those covalent bonds were that kind of kept that little droplet of water together.
Mm.
And the distilled water is really jiggly. It looked like it would never work as a miniature scale water.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I figured out that really salty water created a version of water that looked like it was massive scale when photographed small. And so, that kind of took me into like a different level of kind of looking at the work. It's like, how can we actually kind of invent new techniques? Because I had studied everything how professionals do in the film industry, and I couldn't find anyone giving the tip of adding salt to the water. They would just make the miniature larger, and I realized I could have a smaller miniature and just add salt to the water. And
That's cool.
yeah.
Look at that. Wow, very, very inventive. And so you called that, or your mom called that room the craft room,
Yeah.
the craft. And did she like say, "Hey, guys, come here. I want you guys to make stuff," or how did she get you guys to create? It was just there, and so you just went and did it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we um, you know, when you're in a household of other creative people, we're all just motivated to build new things. And so I never really felt like anyone was ever telling me to get up and do these things. I think, for me, I was just really drawn to that world. And it was as far away from school as I could imagine. I didn't
Mm,
particularly like school growing up, and a lot of that has come down to just me learning differently. So I have dyslexia, and so I'd kind of struggle in various ways. That I think the biggest challenge for me is that people know the classic symptoms of you're flipping letters and all that. For me, it's also like I'd get headaches. Like my brain is feels like it's overheating throughout the day, and so
yeah.
I'd average 2 to 3 headaches per day
Wow.
every single day since probably around sixth grade is where it's really started getting bad when school got a lot more challenging.
Hmm.
Um, but I would the way I would compensate for that, because like initially, school responded by I was put in those special education classes because I was failing my spelling tests and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I really felt out of place there because I kind of I it was like on one hand, like those were my friends, in that class, those are the people I hang out with. But I also felt like I was friends with like the, teacher's pet type crowds, like the people who are staying after hours to do more homework kind of thing. And I didn't really know where my place was exactly. I just knew that I felt like I wanted to test beyond that. So that's when I think around sixth grade, I started shifting towards just putting in literally twice as much time to finish the same homework as all of my other friends. I think that kind of brought sacrifices, not being able to go hang out and skate around town, not getting much sleep most of my life. I'd say I just have to stay up very late, work hard. And um but it worked. I started testing better, I started doing better in school, and
So
graduated well.
what? So what the shift was that you realized that you just had to put double the time to learn and accomplish what you needed for school.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had to work extra hard. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, but the thing is that wasn't necessarily enough for me, because if I work twice as hard, I'm still going to sleep and then waking up and doing it all again. And for me, like just whatever it is in my core that that wasn't enough for me. I felt like the entire day was wasted if I didn't have some moment in that day where I could explore some creative endeavor, something I actually want to do. And so, I would work super hard throughout the whole school day just to get that, half hour to 1 hour at night to like go do some visual effects or like mess
Nice.
around on the computer.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so I'm starting to understand you a little bit more. So you're starting to really enjoy film, the challenge behind inventing new techniques. And so this was during high school.
Mhm.
And so did you at that time did you think, okay, I'm going to be a filmmaker?
Oh yeah.
Then what
Yeah.
happened? What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was easily on that path. Actually, I went to a special high school in Orange County called
Oh.
OSHA, and they kind of taught almost like college level classes for film, but in high school.
Hmm.
So that's what I did for freshman year, and then half of sophomore year, and I ended up switching schools. I went back to my public school because going to OSHA, it was literally an hour and a half drive there and an hour and a half back. Um, and school would go from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It was an extended period.
Wow.
But the reason I was attracted to is the last, I think, 2 to 3 hours of the school day was dedicated to your conservatory program, which for me was film.
Hmm.
So I had that baked into my schedule as being able to explore the things I wanted to do. And that was great. I loved it, but I kind of felt like I, at a certain point, was, you know, I had been doing it since I was 10, and I felt like I was kind of taking classes on things I already kind of knew. And
Hmm.
um, at that point, it wasn't necessarily worth it for me to go to a school where I couldn't hang out with anyone because they all lived so far away and I couldn't drive at the
Hmm.
time. So it made sense for me to switch back, but it was really good experience to meet other kids and, go into an environment where I didn't know a single person when I showed up.
Okay, so then you come back, finish high school in your hometown.
Yeah, so I finished high school. I had kind of this crazy coincidence happen where I'd recently graduated high school. I was across the street at my neighbor's house, and they were throwing a Fourth of July like pig roast party, and we came over there, and then all of a sudden I see Nico show up from the Sam and Nico channel, which is now rebranded as Corridor Crew. They're the company behind Corridor Digital, which is a huge YouTube channel. They have a combined 17 million subscribers these days, and
Wow.
they were one of the earliest filmmaker channels on YouTube. So I had been watching them like my entire life.
Hmm.
And I just had this, it was like the most unexpected thing to see this guy that I've been watching since I was a kid, and like I've learned so much from him. And at the time I started talking to him and I kind of pulled him inside the house and I showed him my film reel. It was a couple years old at that point, but it was really showed the diversity of what I do, visual effects and miniatures and short films all shot around town locally. And he liked it. He liked the film reel. And I don't know what happened, but I played another film because he seemed to like the first one. So I showed a short film and he liked that as well. And a couple of weeks later, I just got a phone call out of the blue from the producer at Corridor, and they said they had this internship opportunity, and they were asking if I wanted it. So that was amazing, and I then started working with them, and I was doing visual effects work for them and helping film the blogs for the channel.
Dang, man. So, how did you meet him? Because you were at a friend's party or your party?
My friend across the street
Okay.
just happened my friend's cousin was friends with the producer
Okay.
who is connected to Nico, the,
Look at
the
that. Okay.
celebrity from YouTube.
Yeah. That's super cool. So you're in there.
hmm
You did an internship, and then what happened?
So I was working for a little bit, and I I really had the itch to kind of get out, and that could have really evolved into a job. I could have stayed there a long time, and it's an amazing place to work. And we're still, close to this day. Uh, but I was really eager to get out and make my own feature film. And so I wanted
Mm.
to figure out the best path for that. And I've also been into writing, so I started working on writing a feature film script. And my thinking, which I think a lot of directors try and find this path, is you have a great bit of IP, a great story, you have the script. If you could package it together and start pitching it, and someone wants to invest in that or produce it, then you can kind of assign yourself as director, and that's a way, it's a foot in the door.
Yeah.
And I was ready to take that path. And then I realized kind of like, for me, I'm someone I obsess over the details and I want to know every aspect of the filmmaking process. And the one thing that was really kind of a mystery to me, which became pretty apparent as I started diving into putting together, a pitch, is I felt like I just was disconnected from the business side of film.
Hmm.
It's something that, they don't necessarily teach until late into the film school classes. And understanding how all of that works, how the investments move and all that is really important. And it's something that um, I wanted to get better at. So I started kind of shifting my focus. I was listening to a lot of audiobooks with entrepreneurs, just hearing their life story, hearing how these great companies are built. And that kind of awakened this side of me that like I felt like I never even explored anything beyond film up until that point.
Mm,
I kind of boxed myself in from a young age, and you know, first film is extremely vast. There's a lot of areas in there, so it's not really that narrow. But
yeah.
I hadn't considered that maybe I could start a company or I could invent something new and then turn that into a business. And and what I realized is that, I'm someone who I learn by doing, and I felt like the best way for me to learn about business was to go start a business.
Mm.
And I thought if I could do something in that area in the tech industry and I can make that extremely successful, then maybe I could even fund one of my films one day and then have that full creative control and be the producer as well as the director. That's my crazy plan. That's my way of getting around there. And of course, along the way, I also just completely fell in love with what I do now. And 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 I already have, other dreams of running other businesses in the distant future as well. So
That's really cool. So you were you were wanting to do your own feature film. You kind of, you have this invention mind. Is it been? Do you have a specific film that you always wanted to make? Is that is that what it is, or you just kind of wanted to make a feature film?
I think I have a lot of different types of stories, and I do work on that. As a you need a mental break. You can't do the same thing 8 days a week. You need to kind of step away and try the things. So yeah, over the years, I had explored different scripts, and
Mhm.
I have different series anthology ideas, and nothing I could really talk about, but I am not necessarily, there's not like a singular story I need to tell or anything. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
whatever it ends up being will be authentic to me and, probably pull from life experiences.
Nice, nice. You you had this. You started listening to entrepreneurial stories and books and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Which one really got you excited and going and starting your own thing? Was there one specific one more than others?
I think well, earlier on when I was listening to various Steve Jobs books, it made me realize like back in middle school when we had a computer class at the time, they teach you typing and all that. Um
Mm-hmm.
I was the kid who would pull up Steve Jobs's keynote during class and we'd be watching the latest reveals because that was a very exciting time to see new Apple products come out. And I had always been attracted to these like world-changing products, products that have an impact on everyone in a very, even a small way. And I think that is when I think of inventing something new, I'm always thinking of that is like, is this something that could improve the lives of potentially every single person on Earth? That's where I gravitate towards. And so, I think that was exciting for me is learning more about his story. But, as I matured, I learned about all kinds of other entrepreneur story, and even people like James Dyson, who I realize there's a lot of his life story that just sort of resonates with me as well. And um, there's a pretty popular podcast these days called Founders, and the
Yeah.
guy, goes into each episode is a deep dive into an autobiography. And so you can speed run 200 autobiographies that way. And I would go through and binge those as well.
Nice. Nice. Okay. So, um, you're you're figuring out you got to start your own thing, right? So at that time you were working or
I um I had a nice job at Corridor. I
Okay, so
left
you were still at
Corridor.
Corridor. Okay.
Yeah, well, I left Corridor and then I, started working from home. And, I had built up kind of a life savings up until that point. Like, I sort of skipped over this, but I've worked on film sets and like done,
Hmm.
camera assistant work and cinematography and, gigs that paid. And so I had built up a savings and then have been living at home where I could save a whole lot of money. So I would get a lot done here.
Got it. Okay. So tell me more about like how did you go from I want to start a business, I want to do something that's going to be a product that it's going to impact potentially everybody.
Mhm.
So what did you do next to and then how did
Yeah.
it get here?
So I realized I needed to flesh out the whole vision and design the product. And so I taught myself the various design tools of the time. Sketch. Now I use Figma. And so I designed essentially the early product and put together a pitch presentation. And really laid out the full vision. So I'd studied the pitch decks. I understood kind of what is required of an early stage pitch deck, and I had this idea where I then needed a technical co-founder. That was pretty critical to this because I'm never going to be able to build this myself. I learned to code at the time. I would actually well after. After Corridor, I moved into UCSB, Isla Vista area. So I subleased a place for 3 months, and I wasn't a student there. Like I never went to college, um, but I made a fake ID for as a student, so I could make my way into the school library, just so I could sit down, get some Wi-Fi, and I got this app called I think Mimo, which was like a coding type Duolingo almost. It was like
Hmm.
teaches you how to do basic programming, and I would study that because I wanted at the very least the pattern recognition. I need to understand how things fit together, how it pieces together and creates a product, even if I'm not going to be the one coding it. So I want to learn as much as possible. And um, I learned a bit to code. I designed the early product, put together the pitch deck, and then started asking around. My neighbor across the street, she told me that if you want to do something, you have to tell everyone about it because everyone's connected to everyone. And we know that to be true because LinkedIn exists, and that's a very valuable company. And that's all just about, 6 degrees of separation. And that became very true early on when I got connected to our technical co-founder. So our my dad, he plays volleyball every week with a group of guys. And one of the guys he plays volleyball with, his son, is works in sales at this tech company called Telesign. And so they're like a two-factor authentication cybersecurity type company. And I got to pitch to him because he's in sales and he's in tech. And so like who does he know? And so I pitched the presentation and then he connected me to his former boss, who was a founder of Telesign, a company that, I think sold for over $1 billion. And I then got to meet him and I gave the whole pitch presentation. I was looking for a technical co-founder. We met at a WeWork, one of those small rooms, and he was eating a Chipotle burrito and listening to my pitch. And then he connected me to one person at the time, which was the Telesign's chief software architect.
Wow.
And I then pitched to him, and this was all in a span of like 2 weeks. And that was Humberto Morales, who is now our chief technology officer. And
Yo,
so
yo.
I pitched to him, and is wild timing because he's been at Telesign for over 10 years and that's his day job, but he's also very much into the startup culture, and I mean, he helped scale that company to be a massive company. And so he loved it. He liked my energy, and this was at a similar time when my brother Carson started working here as well, and became a co-founder and really led a lot of the early designs. And and so you never know who's connected to who. Like it's crazy how I got connected to him. And it just so happens we work really well together.
Hmm.
And, you know, years down the line, we've been doing this for 6 years-ish, maybe a little more. And eventually he was able to go full time with us,
Hmm.
basically leave the day job and become our full-time chief technology officer.
So love the introduction to your story here on the company. I want to go deeper on, okay, how did the idea behind it come about?
So the company actually came as a result of a pivot. So, and this is, very common for most successful companies have
Yeah.
pivoted almost several times throughout the life journey. We pivoted the business model and what we were initially building, but the end mission is still as true as the very beginning mission. So we are here to simplify discovery in e-commerce. And at the time, the vision was to build this marketplace. So we launched a marketplace that was an aggregator of all of these brands. So, we had recognized that there were really more online fashion stores and brands than have ever existed before. But the internet is just very fragmented. You have every single brand has its own separate website with its own separate checkout. And we wanted to unify all of that data into a single platform that you can then search and discover across and also connect with friends and see the things they're following, the things they're saving. And so we had this really awesome platform we launched with we had over 30 brands on there, like some great brands. And this was before TikTok Shop, before the Shopify Shop app, before Instagram Shop. It was certainly ahead of where the industry was going.
Mm.
What I didn't necessarily realize is, well, one, it's if we want to completely win at that game, we need huge resources, because other companies are with the connections to millions of brands are going in that direction as well.
Yeah.
And what we realized is like the thing we were most excited about with this whole thing is just how can we innovate the way that people actually search and discover products across thousands of products. And if you look at e-commerce and you look at all these different websites, they're all doing the exact same thing. You have a search bar, you have filters, you have the ability to filter by price, by size, by color, but they're all doing it the exact same way. And the one that really stood out to us as being just an awful experience across these sites is the color filter. Because all these sites are grouping things by these generic color terms, which just really isn't adequate for describing most products, and definitely not adequate for describing multicolored products like sneakers, for instance. So when we were designing our own marketplace, we were really questioning the design of every single thing that we normally take for granted in e-commerce. And when it came to the color search, um, we didn't want to do that basic list of color names because it's not very helpful. I mean, there's much better ways to do it. And for us, we understood that color is a visual thing, like very uniquely visual. It's almost impossible to describe a color just through words. And so it was strange to me that we were, as a society, collectively kind of abstracting color into these English language names. And we can't even all agree on colors being the same name. Like, some brands will describe a product as maroon, some will describe it as wine color, and it's the exact same color. So there's no unification of how we actually describe products by color. And so if you run a marketplace like we did, there is no data we can pull from these brands because they all describe color differently. So essentially, if we wanted to introduce a color filter, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to come up with our own naming system by color and then manually tag all those. And that's how everyone's doing it. So We changed the user experience. We made it visual. We made it so that you could select any specific color. And this is when, you know, I really dove into algorithms, and this is something I didn't even realize I was capable of. I'd say the one thing I was really good at in school was geometry. It was the one class where I felt like I was like, in the top three students in the class, which was unusual for me. And I realized that, math can be incredibly creative when it comes like if you have a problem solved. And so I realized that color is three-dimensional. You have an XY plane, which is the chroma. So you have a warm to cool axis and a green to magenta axis. And the Z space is the lightness. So it goes up, it gets lighter, and down, it gets darker. So you can represent any color in the visible spectrum in that 3D space. So you could plot it somewhere. And when you understand the distances between product colors and the colors you're pinpointing in that 3D space, you can rank by accuracy. And that's all the stuff that's now completely covered in our patent.
Wow.
Um, and it was almost shocking to me to realize no one else was doing that because
Hmm.
it's like the only way to accurately understand color. And so it started with that. It started with being able to actually sort results in a whole new way that's not just bucketing together green or blue, but actually showing the distance between colors.
So is there a standard periodic chart of colors?
There are some that were kind of developed maybe in the 90s, and
Yeah.
they're kind of wacky the way they actually describe color. I don't think anyone's really satisfied with how those systems work.
So how many? So with just 3D plane that you're talking about, how many colors are there? It's infinite.
Well,
It's infinite,
in
right?
a yeah, I mean in a um 8-bit in an 8-bit RGB space, there's 16.7 million unique RGB colors. So
Okay.
that is the level of specificity we have here is pinpointing the exact hex code, which can then be converted into a perceptually uniform color coordinate, which is that 3D space coordinate. But when you consider you got pinpointing a single color, and then this product evolved into multicolor search, so now you can select two colors and even the weight of those colors. So if I want a sneaker that is 80% dark brown with 20% yellow accent color, then you can dial those two in. And just for fun, I did the math. How many unique possibilities are there when you factor in different colors and the weight? And there are literally quadrillions of unique combinations. So I think when you see we have this product that I'm describing it now, and for the listeners, I'm sure they could sort of visualize how, oh yeah, you could select specific color and see it.
Yeah.
It's different when you actually see it, when you experience it, because people are always impressed and surprised by how accurate it is, and how quick it is to be able to pull up those colors.
So is the was the pain that you identified with discoverability with search, is it was the pain more that you described the pain as every company kind of describes what colors or labels a color a different name, so it was hard for you to be able to consolidate and display the right color. So that was one problem. But is the problem, I mean, is that really the problem here with discoverability? Like if I, because I'm we're not going to tell a consumer, we're not going to say, hey consumer, it's hard to create a taxonomy around colors with like multiple brands, so that's why you need this. Like, what's the consumer pain point?
Yeah. So,
Well, I guess the consumer pain point does run into that, but do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, if so there's several layers of disconnect throughout the process. So before you can even filter by color on a traditional site, you first have an e-commerce manager that is going to take the products and they're going to say, hey, is this in the blue category? Is this the
Yes.
purple category? Is this the green category? And so they're making these subjective decisions. If they think they're helping customers by adding delineation like a light blue filter and a blue filter and a dark blue filter, well, now it makes it even harder to tag things by color because it's like, okay, do I put this shirt in the blue filter? Is it dark enough to be in the dark filter? And then the customer is even more confused because I might be looking for something that's sort of a greenish blue, and I'm I'm spending all of my time in the green filter, not realizing that the ecom manager dumped that into the blue filter. So it's not every single border between color names is an issue. And when you understand that color is three-dimensional and that it's distance based, it there is no borders between colors. One flows into the next. If you take the color orange and you darken it, it becomes brown at a certain point. If you take yellow and darken it, it eventually becomes green, kind of an olivey green. There is no such thing as a dark yellow. And so you you have all of these edge cases with how humans classify color that just doesn't lend itself well to being described as these color names. And so a lot of people find it to be a frustrating experience. But the thing that is so surprising is we know how important color is. We know that these brands spend thousands of dollars to get access to color reports and color data, trend analysis, things that are reporting on like very specific Pantones to understand what colors people actually want. And the software is not giving brands any insight into what they're looking for on those sites.
Interesting. So, do you understand it as, hey, consumers, just like, throughout time, some things are fashionable, some things are not. Does color trends evolve just like fashion trends? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can break down eras by color. There's colors associated with the 50s, with the 60s, the 70s. Things do come in and out of style. You have what I like to call sort of like a Gen Z green, which is kind of like a vibrant chartreuse kind of color. You have these colors that start to pop up in trend, and those are the colors that are, the ones that trend are very often those bordering colors. The color red that is just warm enough to be almost considered orange, like an orangish red. Those are colors that are really hard to find. But the trends they evolve in real time. Like if a couple years ago I remember seeing there's a woman at the Oscars who had this like periwinkle dress. And I was just observing and I was like, wait, there's like three other people with that exact same colored dress who went on stage. Is that going to spark people, looking for that dress online? But fashion might not be and not every listener necessarily thinks too critically about fashion. Maybe your audience is more into interior design. But in that space, like people when they go to paint their house, they're not just saying, "Hey, go find me some blue paint." They're picking out specific swatches and they might buy five different colors that are like similar to each other and kind of paint it on the wall and like observe how it looks and like decide like is this the one I want? So people get really opinionated and specific about what they want. Um, so like in the interior design space, now it's possible to actually find pillows that match the couch or an art piece that actually matches the rest of the room's color palette.
Okay. All right. So you're, wow. So what does that do to a human to be able to get the right color? Do you know what I
I
mean? Like
think what,
at the end of the day,
yeah,
like why does it matter so much when I go buy a t-shirt? So, this t-shirt I'm wearing, right?
yeah.
Um, why does it matter so much that I'm going to wear it black versus green versus blue? Do you know what
Well,
I mean?
oftentimes it's not even a question of black versus green versus blue. It's a question of I like the color green. Can I find that deep forest green color that I like? Or can I find that muted sage green that I like? I think that's usually where people are honing in. Um, and oftentimes people don't necessarily know what color they want until they see it, until they experiment and click around. But people know what colors they don't want. They know that,
Mm.
you're probably not going to show up to this podcast wearing a vibrant orange shirt. I don't know, maybe. But but people have
Oh,
their own style, and oftentimes that color palette is very nuanced. And it might be an army green, it might be something that is muted, and
mm.
those muted colors are the most challenging to sort into traditional color filters.
So do you recommend to brands that they just have like a huge stock of so many colors?
One of the really exciting things we've been able to do with the data is we know the exact colors being searched on the wheel. And we also know every single color in their catalog. And we can plot all the product data in
Ah,
3D space and juxtapose that against all the colors being searched for. And so we could show, like for instance, we had a brand that or we still have them, but they do a wallpaper, and they thought they covered the whole spectrum of wallpaper colors. But really, they were missing a lot of teal color
mm,
wallpapers, even though they were getting searches in that area. And so we can identify these gaps in supply and demand, and help bring that to the brand's attention so that they could produce more lines that could cater to that. Because when it comes to a single brand site, they have a limited color palette intentionally. It's a part of their curation and their style. But to some extent, there are still going to be people who, that brand, maybe they got warm to cool palette stuff, but maybe a shopper, she just likes purple. She wants a deep purple. And if they had something in that color wheel, just one thing on that site, and that happens to be her favorite color, then, increased chance that they'll buy.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, makes me wonder, right? So like as you're generating, each brand's color preferences, right? Each you could call it like each segment's color preferences for the brand, right? Um,
Mm.
but then how's a brand supposed to target people with that color preference? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the shopper almost personalizes the experience for themselves. Normally, with personalization tools, they require some historical data. So the more you interact with that website, the more links you click on from their email campaigns, the more data they have on you as a customer, and they start personalizing the recommended products on the homepage.
Mm,
For us, we could take a user, and when they're presented with that wheel, they're gonna tell you
mm,
exactly what their favorite color is, and they're going to give
yeah.
that specifically. And then you're going to see every product in that site in their favorite color merchandise alongside. So just to give you some idea of, like, we have the data that proves how this improves sales. Like, we're seeing a 1.6 times increase in checkout size across all of our brands. So people they're adding significantly more to the checkout when they're interacting with the color wheel.
Because you've got the
Right.
products for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the conversion rate goes up too. 3.5 times increase in conversion rate. So if you select something on the wheel and you start and you click, or if you just search a color on the wheel, your conversion rate's going to be higher.
Yeah.
So
I like that
this
a lot.
all, this became essentially where the pivot happened. Is we were running the marketplace, and when you have a certain budget and you're trying to do something incredibly ambitious, you have a choice to make where you can either spread yourself thin trying to um, cover a whole lot with one product,
Yeah.
or you could concentrate all of your resources into doing one single thing just better than anyone else. And for us, it was so clear to us that the color search was the most talked about feature on our app. It was what people were um, most interested in, and what brands were interested in adding to their site as well. And so we saw a much bigger potential in actually flipping it into software as a service, and actually having a much larger impact by taking all these other sites on the internet, which were kind of our competitors, and now we're selling our technology to those sites, and we're turning them all into our partners. And so if we can get our search technology on all these sites across the internet, then we're achieving that goal of simplifying discovery and making it so that every person on earth could potentially have a better experience with how they shop online.
That's really, really cool. And so nowadays, so you find you can purchase your software as a service through the Shopify store.
Mhm. Yeah, we
And
have
this,
a Shopify app that is no code, so brands can install it and launch it within minutes. And then we also work on this enterprise solution so that we could partner with the Nikes of the world and have a more custom integration into their software stack.
so where are you today then with the execution of your business model?
So we launched our Shopify app and we have 40 paying clients on there. So it's very early on,
Mm.
but already we've got some great brands like Body Glove, which a lot of people know them. They've been around for I think 72 years. Invented the surf wetsuit. So we've got these great brands across a variety of industries, which has allowed us to develop these really powerful case studies on how it helps them out. And now we're kicking off next year, early next year, we're going to start a new fundraising round, um, so that we can really scale this out, grow the sales team.
Nice. That's awesome.
Hmm.
That's way cool. Tell and your name is Hoppin Labs, right? Or how do you pronounce it?
We just go by Hoppin, so it's
Okay.
HOPPN.com. And, at the time, Hopin was the name of our marketplace. So we had this transition period. We're going to call it Hopin Labs. That's our software as a service where we take we thought of our marketplace as like a think tank for the next great
Oh, yeah.
e-commerce search technologies. And then we'll bring it to Hopin Labs and sell it to other sites. Eventually, the business became all about Hopin Labs and, um, we just changed, now we're just hopping. But the product is infinite color search, which we're
Okay.
able to trademark. I think it's a cool name.
That is a really cool name. Really like it. Okay, so where do you think that where did the inspiration come from? Where how do you recognize inspiration in your life?
Mm.
When you're like, as we went through your whole journey. I mean, we probably left tons out, but we went through your whole journey from that craft room to filmmaking to entrepreneurial side of the film business to realizing, hey, I need to make and raise my own money so I can then do the things I want to do. You've had major moments of inspiration in your life, you know,
Yeah.
they have come from, meeting people serendipitously that connected you to this. So going to a specific location to be able to do that, that opened up the doors for your, now CTO to come and, to be able to understand the pivot, know, okay, what is the, know that you can actually build this infinite color search. I mean, like,
Yeah.
in your life, man, you're 26. You already received a lot of inspiration and acted upon it. So how do you how do you where do you find inspiration and how do you know it's inspiration for you?
I think when you I think it's important to kind of self-reflect, understand like what is your unique perspective on the world? What is the lens to which you see things? And a lot of things can come from that when you conduct and make decisions that are true to who you are. I think for us, one of our one of our early kind of company proverbs was same thing, less words. So we'd always look for the simpler way of doing something. How can we achieve the same outcome with less? And sometimes that's literal, like actually less words. And, with the dyslexia, yeah, we designed our marketplace to not have a million drop-down menus, to have much more visual ways of exploring. And, color being so visual, it's like, why are we making a visual thing into words? Let's get rid of the words. Let's just show the color, have people select the color. And it evolved in, if you stick with something and then are persistent with it for a very long time, if you just continue to go deeper and deeper and think of all the possibilities and what that can become, a lot of, I think, inspired ideas come from that. It's like being able to pick a very specific path that is true to you and dive into it and go really deep with it because most people.
That is fantastic. So where are you going next with Hoppin? What's so you've raised did you raise some funds already
Mhm.
or this is going to be your first raise?
No, we've raised. 1.4 million to date since the very beginning of the venture, and now we're going to ramp that up a whole lot with this new round. It's really a critical point for the company because we're starting to track revenue. We're seeing how it's growing quarter over quarter, and just seeing how much potential there is. Some of the conversations we're having with some really big companies are really exciting. We have several brands in the pipeline that are several times larger than all of our clients combined, kind of thing. And so we're really ready to just scale this up and us having essentially a first mover advantage for the space, what we really believe is a significantly better way to search by color. We want to take advantage of that, and we want to scale quickly and try and have as big of an impact as we can.
Mm, that's really cool. I like how you embrace that and that focus, and you're saying that inspiration becomes even bigger as you focus and you can go deep.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
think it's important to really drill down on doing one thing better than everyone else, having that standout aspect of whatever it is you're doing, because I think a lot of you, I think entrepreneurs tend to get this kind of mindset portrayed by venture capitalists and people who they think, oh, dream big and have like these big ambitious goals. But the thing is, a lot of companies, they start incredibly focused and then they get bigger. So you still need the big vision roadmap. Like for us, the color search is our wedge into the market, into becoming a much bigger search technology company. It's not like this is the last innovation we're going to have. We have awesome innovations every month. So if that continues, which of course it will, this can expand well beyond just color search and become all sorts of other search technologies. And we're building that platform. That's the big vision. It's important to have that, but I do think that it's much better to have a very focused thing from the beginning.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, like you're unlocking the ability for people to almost like find who they really are in the products they buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
By focusing in. So they no longer have to be broad, which is exactly what you guys are doing.
yeah.
Which is super super cool. Well, I admire what you do. Last question I want to ask you is, we ask this from everybody. If you could decide who you wanted to interview next in the Discover Possible podcast, who you really want to be able to dive deep and understand more, who would you recommend that we interview next? Is there somebody that you would love to be able to talk through in this kind of environment?
I think that's a difficult question and almost like something I couldn't necessarily know the answer to, because like I doubt anyone on your podcast knows who I am. Um, but maybe they enjoyed this story if they actually made it to the end to hear this question right now. So I do think that the next interviewer might be someone that I don't know at all. I
Yeah.
have, icons throughout my life, people I've related to. I feel like Steven Spielberg is also dyslexic and has a lot of similar kind of early childhood things that I kind of went through, and I relate to those people. But as far as like how they translate to a podcast story, I don't even really know.
Yeah. So maybe I'll change the question. Maybe the question is, who would you want to learn from? Who would you want to interview?
Well, I think the thing about me is that I want to learn from everyone. Anyone who is very like almost like a master at whatever it is they do, that could be something really specific. It could be someone who understands everything about how transportation systems are built. Something, it doesn't even have to be in my own field, but someone who's really passionate about whatever it is they do.
That's cool. Yeah, I think about like one person that you probably should interview is David Copperfield.
All right.
That guy is truly what you're saying around the space of invention, around the space of truly being a master, the master magician,
Yeah.
right? And how what he's been able to do and how he looks at it. I interviewed him. We probably twice, and also connected him with other people that interviewed him, and My gosh, man, like that guy, that guy's inspiration was not. So if you think about it, you know, and you mentioned this before, not necessarily in the same industry. Your inspiration could be someone in a different industry, someone that's just a master at what he's done. And so he wanted to, his main mentor, you could say, that he looked at was Disney. So
Yeah.
he wanted to do what Disney did for entertainment, he wanted to do for magic.
Mm, yeah. I think one thing I'd love to add is that I believe strongly that a lot of creativity comes from analogies and being able to, if you take someone who is extremely passionate about something, like my brother Carson, my co-founder, he is a master Lego builder. He's been
Mm,
published in Lego books as a kid. Like he builds these awesome um like architectural builds, and you would post them online, and um he understands everything about the history of Lego. And that kind of led into some of the design decisions we make here. How do we build our design system like Lego? And I think when, and with me having the film background, having done not just visual effects, but color grading. Like actually, like there's a tutorial I made when I was 12 on YouTube still that is me teaching how to use color grading scopes for colorizing film. So like I've been into color, I've been looking at color reels my whole life. It was an obvious, like came to me right away when we were redesigning our system. So I think it helps to dive deep and be passionate about things unrelated to what you're doing.
that is really cool. So it was almost like you were prepared for this ahead of time, or you prepared
Yeah.
yourself without even knowing.
Exactly. And I don't know what I'm preparing for when I'm really curious and passionate about learning something new. I just know that it'll be useful one day.
Man, I can't tell you. Like I'm putting together a book based on like all the interviews I've done to answer the question, how did you discover what was possible in your life? And the theme of preparation and not knowing what you're preparing yourself for, man, is always there.
Yeah.
You know, like so you prepared yourself for being this master of color that you would unlock color discoverability for e-commerce around the world. And you prepared yourself for that by your curiosity, you know, early on in your life, like you mentioned, in understanding um, color in film, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't know that you were doing it.
No.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like a fulfillment, a self fulfillment that we as humans can have. Where currently in this life, we don't quite understand the full truth. So we might know the past and the present. We don't know yet the future, you know?
Yeah.
But you are essentially you are fulfilling the future through your present, you know, and past. And then once you have that completed, wow, you fulfill a major piece of who you are.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Dude, I would love
Absolutely.
to include this story as part of the book. Would you be open
Yeah.
to that?
Let's go.
Okay, I like that a lot. Well, thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time. Thanks for, you know, sharing your story because I know it's so unique and what you're doing is something very interesting and I hope a lot of people keep following you and what you create. I'll be excited to see what comes up next with this next round of funding. And all I would say for you is, um, in my experience, like who funds you really matters.
Yeah.
You know, like really, really be picky around who you're bringing in. Um, right? Like, and it's hard to figure out who the right people are to bring in, but
Yeah.
this is going to be key.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let me know if there's anything we can do for you. But thank you for your time. You know, it's
Thank you,
amazing.
Patrick.
It's a
Yeah,
fun,
this
it's
was
a
awesome.
pleasure.